Rafael Nadal's greatest rivals, the question that changes everything. Rafael Nadal has won 22 Grand Slam titles. He has spent 209 weeks at world number 1. He has won Roland Garros 14 times, a number so absurd it sounds invented. When any discussion of the greatest tennis player of all time is had, his name appears before the sentence is finished. And yet, when Nadal himself looks back on his career and its defining moments, the trophies are not the thing he reaches for first. What he reaches for is a feeling. The specific, visceral, deeply uncomfortable feeling of standing on a tennis court and realizing that the game you have spent your entire life building, the game that has made you the greatest clay court player who ever lived, is not working. The feeling of swinging your forehand with maximum effort and maximum spin and watching your opponent absorb it, redirect it, and send it back at you even heavier than you sent it. The feeling of running your opponent to the corner, setting up the shot you've prepared for, executing it perfectly, and watching them turn it into a winner. The feeling of being one step behind, not in your legs, but in your brain, and not knowing how to get back in front. That feeling, Nadal argues, is the truest measure of greatness. Not the numbers on the scoreboard at the end of the year, not the Grand Slam tally or the weeks at number 1, or the head-to-head record. Those things are important and they matter for history, but they don't tell you what it actually felt like to stand across the net from someone extraordinary. They don't tell you who changed you, who broke your model, who forced you to become a different and better version of yourself just to survive. The question Nadal poses is the one that reframes the entire GOAT conversation. Not who is the greatest, but who made you change the most. Those two questions have different answers, and Nadal's answer to the second one is a masterclass in competitive honesty, tactical intelligence, and genuine philosophical depth about what sport is really for. Before we walk through every rival and every lesson, hit subscribe and join the Tennis Insider community where we go this deep every single week. Novak Djokovic, the human wall that absorbed everything and gave it back harder. When Nadal describes what it feels like to play Novak Djokovic, he reaches for a metaphor that is almost physical in its precision. Djokovic, he says, is like hitting a ball against a wall, except the wall is alive, it has intentions, and it sends the ball back with more pace and more direction than you put into it. You drive a deep, heavy forehand into the corner with everything you have. Djokovic doesn't flinch. He absorbs it, repositions, and drives it back clean, deep, and early. There's no hesitation. There's no flinching. There's no moment where you can sense that the shot registered as difficult for him. That psychological effect compounds rapidly. When a player, even the best player on clay who has ever played the game, cannot find the confirmation that their best shot is hurting the other person, something breaks in the confidence structure that makes elite tennis possible. You build your game on a set of proven weapons. Those weapons need to feel like weapons. Against Djokovic, Nadal's heaviest forehand, his highest bouncing spin, his most aggressive driving approach, none of them generated the kind of feedback that said, "This is working." They all came back. The Australian Open final of 2012 is the defining exhibit. Almost 6 hours of tennis, the longest Grand Slam final ever played at that point. Nadal was at the absolute peak of his powers on hard court, which is not even his best surface, producing some of the most sustained, high-level tennis of his career. And it still wasn't enough. Djokovic won 5-7, 6-4, 6-2, 6-7, 7-5. 6 hours of absorbing Nadal's best and sending it back until the Spaniard had nothing left. What that match told Nadal, and what he has been honest enough to articulate clearly, is that Djokovic's genius isn't in dominating you. It's in surviving your best and then outlasting you. It's the absorb and return model applied to the highest stakes imaginable. The wall doesn't break. It just takes everything you have, and when you've spent it all, it hits back with something you don't have left to answer. Djokovic forced Nadal to break his own system. There is a deeper layer to the Djokovic-Nadal dynamic that goes beyond any single match result or head-to-head statistic. The most significant thing Djokovic did to Nadal wasn't winning specific matches. It was forcing Nadal to interrogate the game that had made him a legend and conclude that parts of it needed to change. Nadal's natural game, his genuine, instinctive, from-the-bones game, is built on spinning forehands from well behind the baseline, building points patiently, extending exchanges until the opponent breaks down. That game won him 14 Roland Garros titles. It is the most proven system in the history of clay court tennis. And Djokovic made Nadal realize it wasn't enough. Not because Djokovic hit harder forehands, or served bigger, or moved faster, but because Djokovic turned Nadal's own patience against him. The longer the rally, the more confident Djokovic became. The deeper Nadal pushed him, the better Djokovic responded. The adjustments Nadal had to make as a result of the Djokovic pressure were not cosmetic, they were structural. He worked to improve his serve, not as a standalone weapon, but to buy himself shorter points and reduce the number of exchanges that went into Djokovic's comfort zone. He forced himself to take more risk earlier in rallies, to step inside the baseline and attack before the exchange had fully developed. Because waiting for the rally to unfold naturally meant waiting for Djokovic to find his range. Both of these changes went against his instincts. Both required him to accept discomfort in his own game. This is the definition of competitive evolution, as Nadal describes it. Not improving what already works, but changing what you naturally are, because the opponent in front of you makes your natural self insufficient. That kind of change is painful and humbling and genuinely difficult to execute at the age and experience level at which Nadal was doing it. But the pressure from Djokovic left him no choice. You adapt or you lose. Nadal adapted. Roger Federer, the ghost tempo and the feeling of being one beat behind. The Djokovic problem and the Federer problem feel completely different, and Nadal is precise about the distinction. Where Djokovic creates pressure through absorption and endurance, through being there, always, returning everything, never conceding, Federer creates pressure through something closer to an optical illusion. Everything he does looks effortless. The footwork is smooth, the body language is relaxed, the preparation is early, and the ball moves at a speed and to a location that consistently arrives before Nadal has finished organizing his response. The feeling, as Nadal describes it, is like chasing something you can't quite touch. Not because it's that much faster than you, not because you're slow, but because the rhythm of his game is set at a frequency that puts you permanently one half beat behind the natural tempo. You feel like you're on time.
The preparation feels complete. And then the ball lands, and you realize you were just slightly late, just slightly out of position, and the point costs you something. This is a sophisticated form of psychological pressure. It doesn't crush you physically, it unsettles you perceptually. You start doubting your own timing, your own positioning, your own sense of where the ball is going. Because Federer's easy-looking movement generates ball speed and placement that shouldn't be possible from that level of apparent effort, your brain's calibration of "is my response correct?" stops being reliable. You feel wrong even when you're technically doing things right. The tactical implication is significant. Against most opponents, Nadal can set the tempo of a match through spin, depth, and the pace of his own hitting. The forehand loop that bounces above shoulder height, the heavy cross-court rally ball, the inside-out to the backhand corner. These tools define the rhythm of an exchange. Against Federer at his best, Nadal found these tools consistently neutralized before they could impose their tempo. Because Federer was hitting the ball back before the rhythm had time to establish itself. The ghost tempo. The pressure that isn't visible but is absolutely, relentlessly there. Federer's 2017 evolution, How the master reinvented himself to target Nadal. One of the most fascinating threads in Nadal's reflection is the specific evolution Federer underwent around 2017. The reinvention that took a player who had been gradually slipping in the rivalry and produced one of the greatest comeback seasons in tennis history, specifically engineered to neutralize Nadal's weapons. The change was tactical and deliberate. Federer began taking the ball even earlier than before, particularly on the backhand side. This is the key detail. The backhand down the line was always the shot Federer needed against Nadal's heavy cross-court forehand. The conventional wisdom for years had been that Federer couldn't hit that shot consistently enough under pressure, that Nadal's forehand attack to his backhand was the defining vulnerability that gave the Spaniard his edge. Federer's solution wasn't to defend better from the same position. It was to change the position entirely. By standing closer to the baseline and taking the backhand earlier, at a point in the bounce where the ball hasn't fully kicked up to the shoulder height that makes it so hard to redirect, Federer compressed the time available to Nadal between his forehand contact and Federer's response. The heavy topspin that gave Nadal control against most players became less effective because the bounce never reached its dangerous height before Federer struck it. The weapon that had defined the rivalry was effectively diffused. Nadal's response was immediate and revealing. He had to change where he stood, how he built points, which shots he chose in which situations. The man who had won dozens of matches against Federer over a decade found himself rethinking his own game against the same opponent after a tactical evolution that arrived more than 15 years into their rivalry. That 2017 Australian Open final was the proof of concept. Federer's reinvention wasn't just relevant, it was decisive. And the fact that Nadal acknowledges it openly tells you everything about how deeply he studied and respected what Federer did. Stan Wawrinka, the man who broke the structure from inside a defensive position. Stan Wawrinka is not in the same conversation as Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal when it comes to Grand Slam titles or career longevity. 3 majors to their combined 50+. A career number 3 ranking at his absolute peak.
But in Nadal's personal taxonomy of opponents who were hardest to play, who created the most difficult and most unsolvable problems on a tennis court, Wawrinka occupies a place that the statistics alone would never predict. The reason is simple and devastating. When Wawrinka was in form, he played by no rules. There was no pattern, there was no rhythm, there was no logical structure to how points unfolded or how he chose his shots. Most elite players, even the very best, operate within tactical frameworks that can be studied, anticipated, and prepared for. Djokovic's framework is absorb and return, patient pressure, high defensive baseline. Federer's framework is take early, flatten out, attack the backhand. These frameworks can be challenged and complicated, but they exist as coherent systems that a great opponent can build a game plan against. Wawrinka's framework, on his best days, was essentially the absence of a framework. The 2014 Australian Open final is the canonical exhibit. Nadal was the defending champion and the heavy favorite. Wawrinka was pushed into defensive positions throughout the match, by Nadal's design, by Nadal's execution, by the kind of systematic pressure that had beaten nearly everyone else Nadal had ever played. And from those defensive positions, Wawrinka hit backhand winners that should not have been possible. Not occasionally, consistently. Ball after ball from 3 meters behind the baseline, off balance, with the ball above his shoulder, clean backhand lines down the court. The structural impossibility of that is what Nadal is describing when he says Wawrinka could break all tactical logic. You build a game plan based on what a player can do from given positions. Wawrinka broke the assumption. From a position that should produce a defensive shot, he produced an attacking winner. The game plan stops working because the core premise, push him back and he'll defend, was simply not true. Wawrinka and the definition of peak-level greatness. The Wawrinka discussion leads Nadal to one of the most interesting conceptual distinctions in his entire reflection, the difference between sustained greatness and peak-level greatness.
These are not the same thing, and they deserve to be understood separately. Sustained greatness is what Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal himself represent, performing at an elite level consistently across years and decades, across surfaces and conditions, against every type of opponent at every stage of a career. This kind of greatness is the one that the record books measure. Grand Slam counts, weeks at #1, head-to-head records, all of these reward sustained output over time. This is the traditional model of how we define the greatest players in history. Peak-level greatness is something different. It's the question of how high a player can go when everything aligns. When the serve is working perfectly, the backhand is finding every line, the decision-making is instant and flawless, and the opponent, however brilliant, simply cannot find a safe place on the court. At Wawrinka's absolute peak, his level was as high as anything the sport had produced. The shot quality in those moments was not good for someone ranked outside the top 3. It was genuinely among the best tennis ever played by any human being. Nadal's insight is that this kind of peak-level greatness has its own validity and deserves its own recognition, even if it doesn't come with the consistency to dominate a full season. The fact that Wawrinka could only sustain those heights for stretches rather than for entire tournaments doesn't make the heights themselves less real. And from the perspective of the opponent facing that peak level, it doesn't matter that it won't last forever.
In the moment, is just as lethal as anything Djokovic or Federer or Nadal himself can produce. This is a genuinely generous observation for Nadal to make. He's essentially arguing that his own definition of greatness needs to be wide enough to include Wawrinka, that the player who reaches a level of 103 times in a career deserves recognition alongside the player who sustains 95 across 200 weeks. Both things are extraordinary. Both things are worth calling great. Andre Agassi, the master of stolen space and the earliest ball in history. Andre Agassi retired from professional tennis nearly 20 years before Carlos Alcaraz became a household name, which means Nadal's inclusion of him in this discussion is based on something more than recent memory or tactical relevance. It's based on a specific kind of difficulty that Agassi created that Nadal has never quite been able to shake from his mental catalog of opponents who made me feel helpless. The Agassi problem is not about physicality. It's not about endurance or shot power or serve size. Agassi was not the biggest server in the history of the game. He was not a notably physical player by the standards of the modern era. What Agassi did, what he did better than almost anyone who ever played the sport, was read the tennis ball earlier than the brain could consciously process, and return it from a position so close to the net that the exchange was over before the opponent had organized their response. This is the time and space theft model at its most extreme. Federer takes the ball early. Agassi took it earlier. Where most players allow the ball to reach the highest point of its bounce and then strike it from a comfortable position behind the baseline, Agassi was stepping inside the court and taking the ball on the rise. Before it had reached its apex, before the spin had fully developed, before the opponent's defensive positioning was established. The point started and finished in the time it would have taken most players to begin setting up their response. For Nadal, whose game is built on the premise of having enough time and space to generate heavy spin from the baseline, facing Agassi meant facing a player who denied him that time and space from the very first ball of every exchange. There was no comfortable settling in, no building of a point, no gradual imposition of rhythm, just immediate pressure from contact point 1, with no margin for error and no time to breathe. Nadal had to shorten everything. His movements, his preparation, his decision window. Even thinking about it retrospectively, the pressure is vivid. Carlos Alcaraz, controlled chaos from the new generation. And then there's Carlos Alcaraz, the generational talent who has been compared to everyone and is genuinely like nobody. Djokovic is systematic. Federer is elegant. Wawrinka is explosive. Agassi is early. Alcaraz is all of it simultaneously, packaged in a format that doesn't follow any predictable sequence.
Nadal describes the Madrid 2022 match, when he was still competing and Alcaraz was 19 years old, as an early and striking demonstration of something genuinely new. An opponent who decides the direction of every point from the very first ball without giving you any moment to understand what he's decided. The difficulty of playing Alcaraz, as Nadal frames it, is not that any one element of his game is overwhelmingly superior. It's that the combination is unpredictable in a way that cannot be prepared for. In any given point, Alcaraz might drive a forehand at 130 miles per hour and follow it to the net. He might drop shot from behind the baseline with his backhand on a high ball that most players would drive cross-court. In any given point, Alcaraz might drive a forehand at 130 miles per hour and follow it to the net. He might drop shot from behind the baseline with his backhand on a high ball that most players would drive cross-court.
He might moonball to reset the point and then attack the second ball. He might hit an inside-out forehand and then immediately chip and charge the next return. The selection process appears random, which means it's impossible to anticipate. This is what Nadal calls controlled chaos. The chaos is real. There is no predictable pattern, no readable tactical sequence, no coherent framework for what comes next. But the chaos is controlled. Alcaraz knows exactly what he's doing and is executing each of these diverse, unpredictable choices with the confidence of someone who has practiced every one of them thousands of times. The result is an opponent who creates problems that tactical preparation cannot solve, because the problems change every point. For a player like Nadal, who constructs his dominance through pattern recognition and rhythm control, Alcaraz represents a unique type of thread. You cannot impose a pattern on an opponent who has no pattern. You cannot control the rhythm of an exchange with someone who is constantly, deliberately breaking the rhythm. All you can do is react faster than he expects you to. And at 19, Alcaraz was already reacting faster than most players on tour could anticipate. The core message: your greatest rivals are your greatest teachers. When Nadal steps back from all of these individual portraits, Djokovic the wall, Federer the ghost tempo, Wawrinka the structural anarchist, Agassi the time thief, Alcaraz the controlled chaos engine, the thread that connects them all is not tactics or statistics or Grand Slam counts. It's transformation. Every single player on this list changed Rafael Nadal. Each one of them took something away from him: his time, his control, his rhythm, his structural assumptions, his comfort in his own game. And in doing so, forced him to become something more than he had been before. This is the philosophical heart of what Nadal is saying, and it reaches far beyond tennis. The question, who made you change the most, is not a question about defeat. It's not a question about who beat you, or how many times, or in what circumstances. It's a question about who pushed you hard enough that you could not respond by doing more of what you already knew how to do. Because doing more of what you already know is not growth. Real growth happens when what you know stops being sufficient and you have no option but to find something new. Djokovic forced Nadal to change his serve and his rally aggression. Federer's 2017 evolution forced him to rethink where he stood on the court. Wawrinka's peaks showed him that his structural assumptions weren't universal. Agassi compressed his preparation window. Alcaraz presented a chaos model that had no answer in Nadal's existing catalog. In every case, the response required real, fundamental change to survive. In every case, Nadal survived and returned with a better version of himself. That process, suffering, questioning, adapting, growing, is what sport is actually for, in Nadal's view. The trophies are the record of the outcomes. The rivals are the record of the education. And the greatest rivals are the ones who educated you the most completely, who pushed you to limits you wouldn't have found alone, who made the question of, how good can I be, a question you had to answer whether you were ready to or not. That is the truest definition of greatness, not what you achieved, but what you made the people around you become. If this level of tennis analysis speaks to you, you already know where to be. Subscribe to Tennis Insider and never miss the conversation that matters.